Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Chris Traylor. I'm a global executive for employee experience here at ServiceNow, and I'm really excited to be joined by a great host of fireside chat panelists today for today's topic of discussion around AI and how AI is transforming HR, and specifically covering that topic across really three very specific areas: strategy, technology, as well as execution. And really how AI is going to help organizations unlock really potential for their business, their employees, their customers, and really how these three key areas play critical roles in the recipe for success for those things. So thank you guys so much for joining. Couple housekeeping items, and then I'm going to dive right into some introductions from some of our great panelists for today. As I mentioned, we're going to dive through those three key areas. We have a key speaker for each, but we're going to keep the conversation very light on the slides today and very heavy on collaborative and collective discussion. We're going to have a Q&A section at the end of the conversation as well, but please feel free to drop some thoughts in the chat at any point along the conversation today. And of course, this whole session is being recorded. Shout out to our two marketing folks, Samra and Alicia, for helping us moderate really the chat today, as well as orchestrating registrations and providing this great experience and an asset for our customers and individuals joining us today across the globe. We'll also have some post-event materials as well that we're going to cover, and we'll share some QR codes and links and information to that towards the end of the call today. But without further ado, I want to dive right into some of it, and I'm going to go kind of around the horn here, Jason, Greg, and Chris. So bear with me. I'm going to get to everybody. The first thing I want to speaker I want to dive into is Mr. Jason Averbook. Jason is a strategic HR thought leader and principal at Mercer for digital HR transformation. Jason, thanks for joining us today. And if you don't mind, tell the audience a little bit about Mercer and specifically your role there.
Thanks, Chris. So really excited to be with you guys today. There was a lot of abuse back in the green room where Chris Traylor was talking about my outfit. Basically, he watched a YouTube video of people that are with 40 fashion tips for people over 40.
Yeah, fashion over 40.
I told him I wasn't over 40 yet, but thanks for the compliment. But great to be with you guys. Jason Averbook at Mercer. My role is leading what we call our digital transformation business on a global basis. And what that means is really everything to do with how the HR function's changing from a mindset, heart set, skill set, and tool set basis. And when we think about that, every HR organization in the world is in the middle of a great reset, a huge, huge reset because of AI. And if they're not, they should be. I should just have you put in the chat whether your HR organization is resetting, yes, no, or soon. If the answer is no, then you should switch it to soon. But because of that, what we're going to talk about today is this concept of transformation. Trans means change. And I like having that directly into the role that I play at Mercer, is because the number one thing that we do is, well, we help organizations think about their technology. The biggest thing we do is help them think about change and what change looks like into the future. So great to be with you guys today, and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And go ahead,
Sorry,
Greg.
go ahead. I was just going
Please,
to ask,
no.
Jason, did you share with the group where you're coming in from today?
I did. I said Toronto for those of us that can read the chat. Yes.
And Jason, I believe much like myself, you are a man of the globe. So I think every time we speak, you're in a different location.
Yes, I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Sorry, I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm joining from Toronto today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us from north of the border today, Jason. Really appreciate having you. And as I'm sure many of you could extract from Jason's great background and experience, he's going to be talking a lot about the strategy, right? The pre-technology investment, all of the things strategically that organizations really need to be focused on in order to be ready and mature into all of the change coming and being offered by AI. So thanks so much for that introduction, Jason. And then on the other side of that, right, once you've gone through the strategy, and I'm sure most of you can guess based on my organization and what I'm focused on, I'll be speaking a little bit about the technology side of things today. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have two great individuals joining us from the Ante and experienced partner from a implementation and execution standpoint. And joining from the Ante, I'm going to introduce you guys one at a time, and I would like you both to say a little bit about yourselves and the Ante, if you don't mind. Greg Smith, managing partner and CEO of the Ante. Thanks for joining today. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks, Chris and Jason. I'm coming from Tampa, Florida, and I live in Tampa, Florida. So I'm at home today, in case I missed that at the beginning. So it's really exciting to be with you all today. We're looking forward to the topic and the dialogue. We've got a podcast style format for you today, but my name is Greg Smith. I've been in the HR technology business for about 25 years. I've specifically been here at the Anti and the ServiceNow ecosystem as both Chief Operating Officer and now Chief Executive Officer here at the Anti. The Anti is a premier partner within the ServiceNow ecosystem who's exclusively focused on the employee workflows. So if you're not familiar with that term, the HR service delivery product sits within the employee workflow product bundle. So we've been in that ecosystem for about 8 years, and we've had a lot of practical experience with deploying HR service delivery and other employee workflow products for the last 8 years, many of which are Fortune 50 and a lot of Fortune 2000 kind of companies. So just a lot of great expertise and experience with large enterprises like many of you are joining us from today. So thanks for the opportunity to be here. We're excited for the dialogue, and I'll let Chris Wilkerson introduce himself. So Chris, do you want to say hi to the group?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So my name is Chris Wilkerson. I'm the VP of Technology, Innovation, and Strategy. And as you can tell by that title, I wear many hats and have worn many hats over my time in the ServiceNow ecosystem. So I've been actually working with ServiceNow since 2010. So we're getting close to 15 years with ServiceNow. A lot of people like to kind of throw out their first ServiceNow environment they worked with. Mine was spring 2010. So even before they were using cities is when I started working in the ServiceNow space. So it's been interesting to see this ServiceNow ride. And I've been with the Anti for 7 of those years. So started in January of 2018. It's easy for me to kind of mark that because I have my youngest child was born shortly after I started. So I have a few kids that were kind of running around the house now, but I have a 7-year-old running around, and that kind of matches with the time I've been at the Anti. So with my many hats I currently hold, though, what one of the things I've been kind of focusing on is how we can actually help our customers implement AI through the ServiceNow and the ServiceNow lens. So looking forward to having a conversation today. And I'm kind of talking about more of that execution side of the equation that Chris was alluding to, and kind of our theories around how we can help you all implement your AI strategy in ServiceNow.
So many things I love there, Chris. First and foremost, and if you are a ServiceNow customer, you're familiar with the ServiceNow platform, you've worked with us in the past, please drop what release you started working with ServiceNow into the chat. I'm a Paris or Rome gentleman myself, I believe. I love that, Chris, that you were prior to the cities, which is awesome. For those that don't know, we're now all the way up to our Zurich. We're at the end of the alphabet from a city's perspective. And then also myself, coming from Raleigh, North Carolina, right down the street actually from Chris. I'm at the other end of the parenting spectrum. I've got a 7-month-old at home, not a 7-year-old. And I am coming literally, this is day 1, day 0, fresh off of paternity leave for me. So please don't be judgmental to the audience today on maybe my lack of social skills. I've been only interacting with Goo Goo Gaga. And I think she's saying dada, yesterday being Father's Day. It's pretty cool. So thanks for sharing, Chris. Excited to have you as well as Greg. And then just before we dive right in, I'll give a little bit more of a background because I will be speaking a little bit about the technology side of this conversation today. At ServiceNow, my role is pretty simple. It's my job to work with all of our customers across the globe. As I mentioned, I'm a global traveler, much like Jason. To really make sure they're realizing the value that AI is offering them strategically, specifically within HR and employee experience, making sure that they're working with the right strategic advisory partners like Mercer, as well as the right execution partners like the Ante, to really get the full potential and maximize ROI and time to value in their investment in technology. So excited to be here today and joined by you gentlemen, and looking forward to diving into the conversation. Anything else to add, gentlemen, before we dive in?
Nothing else to add. I was just going to say we need some diversity in these pictures, though. Like we need to get next time we need to add some people to the roster here.
I love it. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love it. So yeah, let's dive right in then, Jason. Since you were quick to grab the mic, let's dive right into our first topic, which is really around strategy and really what AI means for HR and employee experience focused teams today. I didn't mention this earlier, but my background from a technology perspective is not just ServiceNow. I've been at Workday, I've been at talent providers, I've been a practitioner myself. And I think Mercer has a lot of great experience and exposure to multiple tech stacks, multiple operating environments. So, Jason, from your perspective, how is AI reshaping HR today from a strategy as well as operating model standpoint?
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much for that. And Chris, I started on a release called DOS. Do you know
Oh,
that?
yeah, I know.
Yeah, mine didn't have a city name. Mine was called DOS.
I'm actually not 40 yet, Jason. So like I don't know DOS, but I understand now what you do.
Explains why we're dressed differently. But anyway, so great to be with you guys. One of the things that's so important to understand about AI, in my personal opinion, is that AI is a mindset. AI is dependent on a reset. And one of the things, and the reason I brought up DOS, thanks, Dana, is that basically what we've done and what some of us in this space have done is we've gone from DOS to Windows to client server to cloud and basically done the same thing, just in different technology platforms. And one of the things that's so important to me and the work that we do is that AI isn't about technology. AI is about resetting work, resetting what work means, and resetting how humans work with machines in different ways. So we've all been through in our careers training, training on how to use a machine. One of the beauties of generative AI is instead of me learning how to use a machine, the machine learns how to work with me. And when we start to think about that, that changes everything. It changes the whole game. I put in the link to our article I wrote. Why, people always say to me like, well, we don't have good experience with chatbots. Like, for the most part, the chatbots that you use are 3 C's. They're either creepy, they're crappy, or they're clunky. Okay. And I don't know how many of you are like me, but when you talk to the chatbot, tell me the temperature in Toronto today. And people are like, why are you talking so slow? Like, we don't even treat the machine like a human. Have you ever seen anyone do that in their car? Map where they're going? It's kind of funny to me. But all that being said, the world is changing so fast around us. And to me, our goal with AI is not to just put it in as a piece of technology. Our goal is to reset HR, make sure we're resetting what the strategy is. That might mean eliminating HR, said for effect. That might mean thinking about how do I make sure that all of the hands work gets completely automated so I can do heads work and hearts work. And it means making sure that we leverage the human for the right things and the machine for the right things. So human machine teaming is a key part of where this is taking us. The last thing I'll just say, and I'll turn it back over to you, is that unfortunately, most organizations have got on the AI bandwagon through training and adoption metrics. What we need is education and embodiment, not training and adoption. Okay. And that's going to be what makes or breaks companies and their success with AI going forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything you said there. And as the resident technologist, I think we're all technologists, make no mistake, but having and currently working for a technology company, couldn't agree more that it starts with the people, it starts with the operating model, it starts with the mindset. I think that is the most important thing that organizations are, and in my experience, Jason, I'd love to hear your take on this. but organizations everywhere are just trying to figure out what to aim at, right? And let me be crystal clear. I don't think every use case, every workflow is absolutely perfect for AI at all, or maybe even it's just perfect for, legacy types of AI, like scripted or deterministic AI, for example, and maybe not agentic. And it becomes this conversation of augmentation versus automation. And there's, it's a complete spectrum that we really have to talk about. And when you think about this concept of a mindset, what are the challenges that you see with organizations today looking to shift that mindset and putting the effort in to really strategically change it?
Yeah, Chris, how do we not think about things the way we used to? Like, how do we not think in silos? Recruiting, payroll, compensation, just within HR, how many silos do we have? And then across the enterprise, east-west, how many silos do we have? So the first is thinking about east-west, not thinking north-south in silos. The second thing is to really say, what do I want to achieve? What do I want to be great at versus what is it okay to be okay at? Okay, and really apply that lens to it. Because if you just put AI on top of your old stuff, Chris, I always say this is like frosting on top of a moldy cake. Like it tastes good for a second, but then guess what? It tastes like crap. I don't know if anyone had Father's Day cake. I didn't. But if you did, quote unquote, that frosting tastes sweet for a second, but then all of a sudden when the bot doesn't give you an answer, what's our patience level? What's our acceptance
Mhm.
level to a bot giving me a wrong answer? It's 3 to 4 seconds.
Yep.
Okay, and what
I'm
do I
sorry.
do?
I'm sorry. I can't help you with that.
Yeah, what do? I pick up the phone and call. And
Yep.
so I may have spent 9 months rolling something out, getting something ready to roll out. If in 3 seconds the bot says, I can't help you, what happens? The person's gone. Think about if you're ever downloading an app from the App Store. You don't like, what do? Delete it. How often do you go back to see if it gets better? You don't.
Yeah.
So it's thinking about minimum lovable product, not minimum viable product. And then the third thing is realizing that I have to redesign the job. I don't just place AI on top of the job I'm already doing. That's spell check. If we really want to measure and see the benefit that AI can bring, agentic AI, generative AI, any kind of AI, it's redesigning work, where I think about what should the human do, what should the machine do, and how does 1 + 1 equal exponential instead of 1 + 1 equal incremental?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to take a moment because I think that's a really important topic that's going to be pervasive across every kind of area that we discussed today. Greg, Chris, anything to add there in terms of when you're working with customers that are far down a path and they're looking to execute, still kind of operating without this mindset or maybe the wrong mindset? Anything to add there from the execution side of things?
I mean,
I
I
think
would say that a lot of folks today are still in the early stages, but Jason, I was holding my tongue for a minute, like, well, letting you and Chris finish, because I'd be really curious as from your point of view, you've discussed a lot of AI strategy with many different enterprises, and you've watched many different technology cycles come and go over the last couple of decades. How do you talk about where we're at in the adoption cycle and like what people are using respective to AI today and like how deep are they going across many different companies? Because I think
Yeah, so
that
Craig,
will help me answer that question.
it varies greatly. But first of all, as you know, I hate the word adoption, so I'm not going to even answer your question with adoption. When we think about are they embodying this? Most organizations are using it to make their documents better, to make their job descriptions better, to make their job postings better, et cetera, et cetera. To me, that's like auto replace and spell check. That's the first wave of generative AI. And I'd say in most HR organizations, we're about in the 4th or 5th inning of a 9-inning game in that particular area. When it comes to agentic AI, which is not autocomplete or spell check, but it's actually doing work. Guess what? That's where we're in the top of the 1st inning of a long, long game.
Yeah.
That agentic AI is going to replace jobs, and it already is replacing jobs. And one of the things I talk about very candidly about that is that we can't hide behind that. For those that are willing to talk that way, guess what? They're going to be able to repurpose their job into something that actually is much more meaningful from a work standpoint. But unlike other technologies we've had in the past where it's promised to get rid of jobs, agentic AI is already getting rid of jobs. All you have to do is look at the college graduates that are trying to find a job right now that can't find jobs if you need proof of that.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. But Chris, to answer your question, we haven't had a conversation with an HR customer in the last 6 months that didn't start with the AI question. And so 100% of our projects going forward will include an AI element to it, and very similar to how Jason described it, with like it's augmenting work today, and they're making those investments to build the skills and capabilities, as it's still a new technology for many organizations, but every organization is doing something, just like what everyone in this chat room shared. Like, I didn't see any no's in the response to your question, Chris, about who's using AI today and who's not. I saw just about everybody answer with a solid yes. So I think it's
Yeah.
everybody's doing AI in some form or fashion. But I think it starts with executive alignment on the strategy side. So Jason, it was nice to confirm and hear from you that many executives are thinking that way and talking that way. And we're starting to see that trickle into the execution side of the house with real project work, building real solutions that are inclusive of AI.
And Chris, what I want to Katie's question in the chat really has me like salivating. So I want to answer
Please.
it if I could. Do you have examples of bad uses of AI? And one of the things that's really important in the world of transformation, you guys, transformation is made up of mindset, heart set, skill set, and tool set. Mindset, heart set, skill set, and tool set. Okay. And in order for AI to work, we have to take into all four of those. Okay. The mindset, what's my vision and am I aligned? The heart set, how am I balancing the human side of it? The skill set, do I have the right skills in the organization to be able to bring it to life? And the tool set, do I have the right technology? So Katie, almost every day I have an example. I worked with an organization who rolled out a talent marketplace that automatically matched people to opportunities within the organization. Okay, guess what? The managers of those people didn't let people apply for the jobs that it matched them to. So guess what? They said AI failed. In that particular case, it was a mindset issue where we had to roll it back, Katie. It's like a dating app. Like it worked fine. Like, but if I'm not interested in dating, guess what? I'm going to blame the tech. In this case, they blame the tech. We have other situations where people have put in place bots. I worked with an organization last week on Friday that has 17 bots within HR. And they're wondering why people can't figure out which bot to use because they've all got unique names. I'm like, I don't even remember the names of my 2 kids, little less the name of my 17 bots. And I talk to my kids a lot more frequently than I'm going to talk to my bots as an employee. So all of that being said, Katie, there's lots of use cases where people have started with the tech. And that's where I implore people to talk about how do I want work to work going forward? How do I want that to look like? And then what's the right tech to bring that to life?
And Jason, this probably dovetails nicely into it. I've seen some organizations get too aggressive too soon and not let the skills of the organization and the change management elements catch up where the humans aren't ready for some of the technology or it hasn't been explained. So it's both a hearts and a skill set change management topic that I've seen people misstep on. Because if you go too fast too soon, you still have to figure out ways to control, enable people on the technology before you just let them run wild out there in production.
And Greg, it's a great point, but it's also a
Mhm.
really interesting time because if you go too slow, you're also the next blockbuster video.
Right.
So, I mean, because it takes humans a long time. We know how long, like, there's still people that say, I can't roll out employee and manager direct access because, well, that's a weird picture. Because guess what? My people don't have smartphones. So guess what? We're not going to do anything. So I would beg us to think about the balance of changefulness, the mindset opening, and still push. Because guess what? If we don't, we will be blockbuster.
Yeah, and I love the mindset point on this, right? Because I think the number one question that organizations are asking themselves is where should we start, right? Like what makes sense? Where should we start? How should we prioritize? And strategically look for areas to kind of start with something AI related. I think like my number one recommendation to every customer and every conversation I have is look, it's going to be an individualized approach for every organization, different business goals, different objectives, different customers they serve. The worst thing you can do is not starting anywhere, right? But you have to start somewhere, and albeit small. I typically recommend. What are you seeing, Jason, on your side, and what would be your recommendation for organizations when you work with them on where they should start and how they should define where they start?
Yeah, you know, it's a question that I'm going to go back to if I could. It's something that Kim asked also, because that ties together with Kim's question about what companies can ask themselves when they think about this. There's
Mhm.
really 5 questions that I try to focus on when we work with clients. The first one is, what human potential are we unlocking? Okay. Now, a lot of people are like, that seems weird, but it's really important because there's never enough resources in the HR function, in the finance function, in the IT function. So by doing this, what human potential are we unlocking? The second one is, if AI disappeared tomorrow, what would we regret from not doing it, from not learning from it? The third, are we actually redesigning work, as I talked about earlier, or are we just inserting it into the old way of working? The fourth is, how do I actually measure success? Okay, this one is key because I see so many people still measuring success as go live. It's the stupidest measure in the world. Okay, that doesn't mean don't have a go live party, but you still want to go live. But now, what's the
Well,
impact?
well, typically there's a cake, Jason, which I know you had made that reference earlier. Usually there's a go live cake, so that motivates people too.
Yeah, and I'm all for go live, but at the same time, what is the measurable impact? What is the measurable impact that this is having? And then the last one, which I truly love, are we actually equipping our people to be AI co-pilots? Or are we just giving them AI as an end user? Okay, those are 2 completely different things. Okay, and the way most organizations have started is they've just rolled out AI to people and said, hey, use it. Okay, AI done right means that it's a human and a machine working together to solve a problem that's got a measurable outcome. So those are the 5 things that I think about that when we work with organizations on that are really, really important. The other thing that I'm just going to say really quickly is I want to tie it back to the other thing that Katie asked about, bad use cases. If people have bad data, AI doesn't work. Data is the fuel for AI. And for those of you that have heard me ever speak at a conference, when I get people to chant data is sexy, data is sexy, data is sexy, I've been doing that for a long time. And that was just to get analytics. The purpose of that was to make sure that we have data fitness. If we don't have data fitness, AI will not work. Okay. And that's really, really important to keep in mind. Emily asked the questions about measures of success, and we can come back to that. But I love Ben's point. They can use AI to fix bad data. But guess what, Ben? You have to know you've got bad data first. And unfortunately, the way most people are finding out they have bad data is standing up a chatbot, it giving the wrong answer, and then all of a sudden you've lost the trust. AI is about trust. AI embodiment is about trust more than anything else. The T should be trust, not technology.
And
Yeah,
see,
I love. Go ahead, Chris.
yeah, and Mandy earlier asked a question about a very specific thing that they want to be able to have AI help with their benefits questions. To me, that's almost kind of that start of that whole thing we were just talking about. So being in the AI world, you kind of see some things. I saw one I was telling some people the other day about. It was some AI generated meme, and it had Mike Trout married to a philanthropist, happened to be the same name as his actual wife, but it wasn't the same person that put the stuff together. So now you're questioning some of those things. If you start with something kind of small, like maybe a benefits thing, and you focus on it, you can clean up that benefits data. You can make sure that that data looks good. And then you can start Then you can also inherit, you can start getting trust into that benefits functionality, which then you can spread it beyond that in a more manageable way than just saying I have to clean up my whole enterprise data structure. That's a big lift to go clean up the whole enterprise of a 40,000 person company. But if I can focus on one area, it kind of gets you going. It can get your momentum moving forward.
Hey, Chris, I've heard bad data as being the enemy of AI quite frequently. If you were going to make that a little bit more specific for the audience, what kind of data are we talking about?
Well, I think that's kind of the key to starting off small, because then you can focus more on the data that's pertinent to, say, benefits. And you can actually focus on that. If I've got some data kind of sneaking in from external systems and I don't know maybe where that data lives, if I have maybe 5 systems and I'm only familiar with 3 of them, then maybe I also have incomplete data. I can also have data in different systems. We had a customer who had they had PeopleSoft back in the 90s, and they kept that data going over the course of the time of the company, and they had data in there that was 30-year-old stale data that no one ever looked at because they just kept on moving it along. So those kinds of things can impact your AI results too. But if you focus on a particular thing, you can kind of see that quicker and maybe clean up those data elements too.
So if I heard you right, I heard content that supports things like benefit plans and benefit plan
Mhm.
information. There's probably some policy documents that need to be cleaned up and make sure that those are saying the right things for the company's intent. And I also heard data that's related to the worker that sits within tables or systems that we're accessing to answer questions.
Right. And you might have some of that you might have a stale policy out there that the AI can pull in, and now you've got a bad response from the AI
Mhm.
interface. So if you focus on certain things, you can clean those things up, and it gets you that momentum and it gains that trust in your organization. Because as Jason's been saying, people often focus on the technology, but it really is a mindset shift too. You've got to trust what you're getting back as an organization. Otherwise, it kind of dies on the vine because people stop using it because they don't trust it anymore.
Yeah, no, and Mandy was the individual in the chat for dropping in the question around employee benefits, and we talked a lot about like where to start, right? Mandy, for you specifically, and kind of what Chris and Greg and Jason are talking about right now is start with ensuring that you have good data to share and serve up to your employees around employee benefits. Otherwise, you're just rolling out a. I always tell people, really good AI models are effectively useless. And Jason, you alluded to this without a good experience and vessel to also deliver it. So you need the data, right, to feed the model. And once that model is good, that's great. But as Jason's talked a little bit about chatbots and poor experiences in delivering value to the end user, in this case, an employee or a benefits manager. Um, it might not have the impact that you're hoping for, right? So you kind of have to step through this in kind of that manner that Jason outlined of, what's the mindfulness, what's our approach, does our organizational strategy really align to what it is we're trying to accomplish? And once we do all of these things with the data and the AI models and the product that we've bought, does that product even offer an experience that serves this value up in a seamless manner that makes it easy and frankly approachable for the interactor or user?
Yeah, and Chris, if people want to test their content, you can do something simple. Everybody on this call has access to OpenAI. You can go open up ChatGPT, load a benefits plan document, and then ask the ChatGPT to say, "Hey, what benefits am I eligible for?" And you can ask all the questions of OpenAI like that your employees are asking that they want the answers to. And if the machine is returning bad answers, you probably have bad content.
Yeah, and we kind of naturally segued it into, and this was pretty much the technology section, by the way. So thank you for teeing that up, Jason, Chris, and Greg, which is from a technology perspective, this is all that I talk to customers about, right? When I get this question of as we seek to operationalize this strategy that maybe Jason and Mercer are working on us with, Chris, what are the things that we need from a technology standpoint to make this work and deliver, ROI and value, which by the way is Jason, you alluded to something I'd love to talk more about of what does measurable success look like and how do we quantify it. But I break this down into 3 key things in terms of technology. The first is the data, which we just talked about why, right? Do we have a way to connect, understand, and act on not only structured data, but also unstructured data? most of the data that organization has across siloed systems is largely unstructured, and thereby potentially or ultimately useless in the traditional world that we lived in before. AI and the right platforms do offer us the ability to actually do something meaningful with that structured data, connected into a single endpoint, understand it better, provide contextualization around it, and then actually leverage that unstructured data in a meaningful way. And in order to do that, we need the second thing. We need the ability to orchestrate that data across enterprise workflows, traversing HR, IT, finance, multiple teams across the spectrum, right? We have to go east-west, as Jason mentioned, right? We can't just look at, hey, we want to implement this for just narrowly for one area of HR or even just HR itself, because the data that we have allows us to do more with it, but also provides a more complete picture for us. And then the last one is, once we've done these two things from a technology standpoint, we've centralized our data, both structured and unstructured. We've built out the right orchestration and workflow to power the enterprise with it. Do we have experiences? I'm a big proponent right now in this AI world of truly contextualized conversational experiences to deliver AI, not like chatbots, which is, you know, predefined, scripted, deterministic, but do we actually have a conversational interface that's capable of interacting with me at a human level, a digital pair or a digital worker or twin that I have to help me navigate a situation, not someone just reading scripts from an outline, right? So those are the three key things, and I think we just talked about all of them. And I want to just call that out, that I focus on with every customer that we work with here at ServiceNow.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I now when I log into like the chatbot stuff, I'm trying to get help. Sometimes it's kind of fun to play the game. Is it really a person or is it a bot on the back end? Or when I get that phone call, that is that really Amanda calling me or is it really an AI bot calling me? And if you're asking that question, the AI is getting a little better than it used to be, because when it's a scripted, a deterministic bot, you can usually figure that out a lot quicker than with some of the AI stuff. So if I can actually ask a real question and get a real response and get something successful done, I'm not sure, Chris, and I know a couple of those from North Carolina, I was able to renew my license over a bot. I had to ask me a couple of questions. I wrote in. They said I needed I think all I had to do was give it a credit card at the end to pay for it, and I got a license mailed to me.
Shout out to NCDOT, one of the best. And I'm a Maryland guy. DMV organizations around from a consumer standpoint. Couldn't agree more, Chris. As a North Carolina native myself, you know, Kim just dropped something in the chat, and Kim, I'm glad to hear that you had a great conversational experience with an AI worker online. I want everyone to think for a second about what Chris just said. Just think about the last time you picked up the phone and called one of the thousands and millions of businesses out there that has like a we'll call it an IVR or whatever you want to call it, but it's effectively a bot. It's scripted. It can only handle certain questions that you ask it, and then you have to yell at it on repeat. Connect me to a live agent. Connect me to a live agent. Connect me to a live agent until it finally picks it up. Just contrast, Kim, in your mind, the differences between those two experiences, because eventually, right, and we're already headed here, and we're doing some stuff at ServiceNow even around this especially for our customer service management organizations, is we still offer that experience, but it's actually a digital agent that can adapt and evolve autonomously and converse like a human, rather than this scripted, you know, process of just, hey, select one, or if you give me this answer I can help you, if you don't I can't help you. I think the consumer side of this is the way that I always try to put my mindset in. Oh, hey, Kim. I didn't know Kim was on the call. Maybe I subconsciously did, but yeah, I just think that's a really cool way to think about it, is like the consumer experience that we have, even in some cases around what we might see as AI, is in fact pretty poor because of how scripted and deterministic it might be.
Yeah, and Chris, just to give a real life example, the AI chatbots today have a natural language capability. So you can describe a thing in many different ways, and the chatbot will figure out what it is that you're looking for. And I know many of the HR operations folks on the calls today spend a lot of their time answering basic transactional questions from their employees. How do I do a job change? How do I transfer somebody's cost center? How do I change managers for people? How do I recommend a promotion for people. And where the AI chat capabilities are going is managers, employees can submit those types of questions to an AI agent. The AI agent can figure out the transaction that they're trying to complete and then have them confirm what the transaction is, and then actually interact with that as the agent asks the questions for the types of data that they need to go execute that transaction, and then go deliver that transaction to core systems of record by way of integrations to actually complete the transaction. So a lot of the time that your human HR agents are spending on the phone coaching managers and employees through transactions can actually be orchestrated through tools like ServiceNow when implemented the right way. So you're right, it
Yeah.
changes the experience wholly by putting that machine in front of the managers and employees to go execute transactions that they're trying to complete every day. That's taking many hours, many days worth of human power to get completed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I just saw Jason respond in the chat, but I'm in agreement with you, by the way, Jason. The way that I always think about it is Gen AI expands the box that we were currently living in, gives us more room, but it still gives us the ability to kind of really keep things kind of in its confines. And then we get into agentic AI, and that's where maybe get a little bit more outside of the box. One of the questions that came up in the chat earlier, and I didn't want to kind of take away from the strategy portion of the discussion too much on, was around so what are some bad use cases that we've seen? And Jason, I think you had a really great answer for that. And then just earlier, prior to that, there were some questions around what are some key use cases that you guys see customers looking to leverage from an HR standpoint. And I'll share three really quickly that we see every day at ServiceNow. And these are customers, by the way, that are leveraging Workday, Oracle, SAP, all the various, large HCM providers. And these are pervasive and being interoperable with those solutions, which is the first and foremost is just making the life of the HR agent easier. I'll make this really simple. HR case summarization, right? The ability to typically on average, any HR agent on an average case, we've seen this takes anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes just ingesting and digesting the information associated with a case. That is the average amount of time it takes the largely above average human to consume information on a case to then identify what it is they need to do to help that person. HR case summarization not only summarizes that information as it says, but it synthesizes it and makes it more ingestible and digestible for any human. That's just table stakes. So we're driving that time down from maybe 10 to 30 minutes for most organizations to well within 3 to 5. So we're cutting it in half at best, but at worst, but in most cases, we're seeing 300 to 400% operational capacity gains by HR agents just by making information more consumable for them. We're not maybe even delivering an AI agent for that customer yet. They're still doing the work. We're not taking that off of the plate of the HR agent. We're just making the information more consumable for them. The second is I'll kind of tie it to this, chatbot conversation we had earlier. We have customers that are leveraging generative AI or our solution, which we call Now Assist, to actually provide a better conversational experience for employees through these interfaces. So historically, we've had a chatbot since the beginning of time here at ServiceNow. Historically, it's been scripted and deterministic. We've now added Now Assist or generative AI elements into that, which have allowed that interaction with employees and customers to be more human-like. It expanded the box, so to speak, and it offers them more variance. So when an employee like myself is going on paternity leave a few months back, or really this is before I even had my child, I went into what we call NowBot and I said, hey, I'm having a kid on October 27th. It's my first one, so I have no clue what I'm doing in more ways than one. What are my benefits? It not only provided a policy document to me, but it said, you said you're having your child on October 27th. Would you like to then start and schedule leave potentially starting on October 28th? So it's not just providing me what I asked for, but it's also assuming that there are other things that I might need that I have not yet asked for. And then it can help me navigate that conversation in a human-like fashion rather than just this scripted workflow of ask for this, provide this, end of conversation, right? So that's the second, right? Enhancing conversational experiences with generative AI through Now Assist. And then the last is like something we're all very familiar with, and it's a very simple concept, search. Just simple AI search. The ability to leverage generative AI to actually, when I ask a question, it not just index results based on keywords or semantic search, but to actually leverage generative AI to seek to understand the contextual meaning of what it is I'm actually asking for and point me in a better direction to resources, not just, again, information, but actual tasks and activities that can be executed. Again, in this case, we're not talking agentic and the computer doing it for me, but pushing me in the right direction more quickly. It's removing the hunt from the search process. So those are the three key use cases that I see every day: summarizing cases for HR agents, better conversational experiences for employees, and a better search experience for anyone interacting with the platform.
Yeah, and Chris, just to pile on what you said about the search capability and safe harbor statements apply, right? I think ServiceNow is coming out with conversational search, so where you get to interact with that search to continue to refine your search capability. So you're searching and talking at the same time to make the search results and the content being provided better. And it's very similar to what everybody is seeing with like a Google search capability in their consumer lives today, where it's more conversational in nature instead of just a binary search result.
Yeah, I love that. And with that, I'd like to shift gears to the execution piece of this, right? We've talked about strategy and
Can I jump in for
what,
just one
yeah,
second?
please, good.
Just because I can't not.
Yeah, please do.
That Tracy just asked the question, and I want to make sure that so there's a couple things. There's two words I'd love for you guys to take away from what we're talking about here. That every time Chris says generative AI, generative AI there's two I's that are really important here: intent and infer.
Inference.
Okay, and so no one wakes up in the morning with an intent to go to ServiceNow. Like, oh, I can't wait to use ServiceNow today. That's not their intent. Does that make sense? Their intent is to get something done. And inference, what Chris was talking about when he said, I'm having a kid, you could tell as a new dad, he didn't say, I'm having a dependent, which is what most HR organizations need to say. How many people say, I'm having a dependent? No one would ever say that. Or I just left my dependent reveal party. No one said that. But so the concept of inference will take dependent and infer it into I'm having a child. Okay, so Tracy, I want to make sure I tie this back to what you asked about. I don't have time for that. I just need someone to resolve my issue. One of the problems, in my personal opinion, is that we talk too much about search and not enough about answers. And really, what Chris and Greg were just talking about isn't as much search as it is answer.
Agreed.
Okay? And that's really where the world's moving to, is away from search. The reason that Google's search revenue is down so much is because no one wants 50 documents to look through. And even if it understands what you're asking, you still don't want 50 documents to look through. You want an answer. Okay. And the more that we are able to give an answer, Tracy, and the more that that experience can feel more expansive than what a human's going to provide to me, that's what's going to get people to use it. So when Chris says, by the way, I'm having a kid, not only does he getting into his benefits, but guess what? It's also giving him a list of rewards and perks that the company offers for people that are about to have kids. It also connects him to the fathers who don't know how to change diapers group in Slack or Teams, for that he can learn how to do that. It's also shooting him some education. So all of a sudden, Tracy, no longer am I just doing a transaction, I'm doing an interaction. And Tracy, all of a sudden, what we get is no longer an HR service center, but we get an HR experience center where we're providing experiences, not just service. That's what's going to make that shift happen, Tracy.
Well said, Jason. Couldn't agree more. So with that, I do want to round out the conversation. I want to leave at least a couple minutes, if we can. If not, I want to spend a few more minutes talking about the execution side of this, specifically, Chris, yourself, and Greg. And like, once these decisions have been made, once technology has been identified, what are the key things that organizations really need to be thinking about and focusing on to bring these hopes and dreams and items to kind of really life and reality?
And I think the underlying thread that we've kind of had this the whole time here still even correlates into the execution side of the person. So because of the fact that you're still going to have people that aren't as comfortable, or there's going to be this challenges of how do you get people and embodying it, and then having all these different the mindset and the heartfelt. So if you start there knowing that there's the people part of it, and you think about, okay, what am I actually trying to do to help somebody? So your case of the I'm having a child, well, that person obviously cares about a very important life event. When you kind of think about what are we really trying to do here and trying to help people, what are we going to focus on to get the most value for our employees, that can start the conversation and start to say, okay, I have a benefits. I want to focus on benefits. So then you can start going down that path versus I want to implement AI, which is kind of what I'm hearing a lot of when I hear these different AI talk track. It's just, we want to do AI. Well, why? Why are you doing AI? Just because we want to. So really being thoughtful about how do you start that process and what path you want to go down. Mandy mentioned benefits. That might be very key to her organization. We have another customer that was solely focused on that chat interface. So we want to make sure that the AI on the chat works out. So there's different organizations who have different desires, but it's good to be very thoughtful about where you want to go to get the most value for your org, and then focus on that piece instead of trying to do the whole organization.
Yeah, and Chris, if I'm
Yeah.
hearing you right, I'm hearing make sure that you have a goal and purpose in mind and that it's
Mhm.
understood by the organization.
Yes. And not just, and one thing we've talked about too, Greg and I have talked about this numerous times, is this AI conversation. I'm sure everyone on this call has heard about every possible HR tech application has an AI component to it. So you
Mhm.
want to really be thoughtful about how the use cases fit into that, and make sure that you're going down the right path again with that end user, that employee experience in mind.
Yeah, and
Chris, I want to ask you and Greg a question on that really quickly because I think that's a really important point. I think it's safe to say at this point, everyone is going to have AI across every system they have. Would you guys agree with that from like an implementation standpoint? As you're implementing products, like you're interacting and ensuring systems are working together across multiple AI models across multiple systems. Is that a safe assumption for uh, people in this call?
Yep.
yeah, I think people need to think about AI capabilities in a similar way of reporting capabilities. There's different levels of it. There's enterprise, there's point AI, or there's point reporting solutions. And so there's different types of technologies that are available at different size and scale across the enterprise. So very similar to both reporting and integration, AI has different layers to it, and there's definitely emerging winners and losers. But what's clear is there's at the top of the stack where you've got the natural language model and just giving the capability to have a conversation. You're seeing winners out there like OpenAI. Like
Mhm.
most technologies are using OpenAI today. There are some other models out there, like Google has their own model, Microsoft has a model, Facebook and Meta have developed their own model, but that's top of the stack to give you a conversational model. And
Mhm.
even above that, you set the compute model because AI in general has a massive compute problem that NVIDIA has solved. And there's very few other people who've solved that compute problem at a hardware level like NVIDIA has. So if it starts with the compute, then you get in the conversational models. But then you're right, like every application provider on the planet is going to build AI capabilities in app, like Workday, like Oracle, like Salesforce, like ServiceNow, that's giving the ability to solve specific use cases at the application level. But then you've also got like a middle tier at the interaction level where you've got things like Google Gemini, where they've provided an interaction layer at the enterprise level where you can use Google Gemini or a Microsoft Copilot to feed some of those application level capabilities across the enterprise. So and I think where we're going with this, Chris, is people need to have a basic understanding of what the architecture looks like in order to know like how do you deploy this because there's some technical capabilities that your users are going to interact with, and that's either going to be at that Microsoft Google layer or it's going to be at the application layer where it's served up to your users. But it's not going to be at the NVIDIA
Mhm.
level or the OpenAI or the Google Gemini kind of layers.
Yeah, it's really well said, Greg. And around that, right? I think you mentioned like the importance of really understanding the architecture and the infrastructure kind of around it and what that means for your organization. Talk to me about the need for a center of excellence around this AI stuff, and more importantly, like how important governance is, right? Having a control tower, right, to help manage like the complexity of these ecosystems and infrastructures that are in place to help drive AI value.
Yeah, I mean it's so I think having a COE and having a governance model in place is imperative because as Jason said earlier, trust around AI
Mhm.
has to be
The
understood and
big, the
accepted. The
big
big
T,
T,
the big
right?
T. Yeah.
You know, and I was at ServiceNow last week having a similar conversation where governance is the number one topic for all executives across the ServiceNow customer base, saying like, hey, how do we trust and govern the way that these AI agents are working out there in the world? And you know, because it starts with security. There's a huge data privacy element. How do we regulate and govern what responses the robots are giving to our employees? Because just because somebody asking a question, it doesn't mean that they're entitled to the answer. You know, there's so if you went to an agent and
Yeah,
you said,
or the data that's capable of providing the answer,
right.
right? Like that's
So there's some hard conversations and some serious conversations that need to be had on a company by company basis to say, how do we govern the data and how do we make sure that the robots and the AI agents aren't overextending data and breaching things like data security and data privacy?
yeah, it's really well said. And I know we're at time, Samra, Alicia. I know you're yell at me if I go over too long. Look, we had a great dialogue today. I just want to summarize really quickly a couple things that we heard. We're going to throw up on screen here in just a moment. All of our LinkedIn profiles. I know Jason's already sent out some articles. I'd love to connect with every single person on LinkedIn or whatever channel makes the most sense. Just to summarize what I heard today, Jason, you spoke a lot from a strategy standpoint about the importance of AI as a mindset. I think that's got to be one of the biggest takeaways here is mindset before technology. Again, the technology guy is reiterating what the strategy guy said. I think that's incredibly important from a strategy standpoint. From a technology standpoint, right? Once we have that mindset, I can't stress enough how important the data interoperability of whatever platforms you leverage really is for all of this. As Jason also mentioned, these AI models, these AI capabilities, they're absolutely nothing without data. And there's these other things that are important too, conversational experiences, like enterprise workflow as well. But without access to the data and the quality of that data, the AI is really nothing at all. And then what I think I heard last in the execution side of things is the importance, right, of governance, understanding your infrastructure, really ensuring that you're establishing a strong AI center of excellence where all stakeholders are coming to the table, legal, the business units, right? HR, finance, technology, whoever it might be, all working together, right, to ensure a complete vision for successful execution of an AI strategy and technology implementation. Thank you guys for joining me today, and really hope everybody enjoyed the call. And we'll send out the recording for those that weren't able to join.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.